Well, howdy, y'all. Welcome to Once Upon a Time in Texas with episode number 101. Super excited to be here. Can't believe that we have hit 101 total podcasts. I never thought I would make it this far. And to be honest, there's been a few times that I've kind of thought about giving it up. But then when I miss a week or so, I get people that go, dude, what happened? Where's your podcast? And I realize that more people listen to it than what I thought. So, you know what? I guess at least for the time being, I'm going to keep right on doing it. So, I'm your host, Michael Mitchell. As of right now, it is Tuesday night, February 18th, right here in Wichita Falls, Texas. Now, normally, I try not to do these on Tuesday night. I usually try to do them a little earlier in the day. However, it's been kind of a crazy day. Went to city council earlier. I've been going to city council now probably, 6-7 months, something like that, attending regularly just as a concerned citizen. And I want to be an informed citizen and kind of watch and see how our government works. And I do enjoy it. But I also get to represent, my area, I guess, as the City Revitalization Committee chair, which we've got some big things coming up pretty soon that we're going to be proposing to the council. And so that's always a good thing. But normally on Tuesday nights, we have scouts. However, today we had a pretty big, cold weather storm. I guess you want to call it a storm. I don't know. Low pressure system. And it has turned everything outside just absolutely frigid. As a matter of fact, right now the official says it's 16 degrees and we're going to be at like 9 degrees tomorrow morning with wind chills down into the negatives. Negative, 7-ish. Now, for those of y'all that listen that are from the northern latitudes here in the United States, I'm sure many of y'all are rolling your eyes going, oh, Texans and -7, that ain't nothing. Well, it is something to a lot of us here because we ain't used to it. That's the God's honest truth, the long and the short of it. I mean, even water lines around here, they talk about burying them below the frost line. Well, I was talking to a friend in Minnesota that said, they had to bury their water lines outside something like 36 inches deep. Here we have to bury them like 14 inches deep and we don't have to worry about them freezing normally. But yeah, any sort of water lines or anything that are run on the exterior of a house, they freeze. And so this is a big deal. This is, as dumb as it sounds, it's dangerous for us. But on the same token, like when we hear about people in the Northeast that are dying during a heat wave, and it's like 92, we're like, are you serious? And but it is different. It's all about what you're used to, and we aren't used to this. So anyway, city council today, nothing super exciting. They discussed, of course, the main hot topic, I guess, today was lease lots. Because the city of Wichita Falls does own Lake Kickapoo and Lake Arrowhead, both of which they lease out lots around the lake. And anyway, there's a whole thing about it. And basically the city's a landlord and they're looking at kind of exiting that. And I'm not super well versed in that, so I'm not going to sit here and talk too much about it other than, it sounds like the city is making some good decisions on getting out of the landlord business and letting those people own their own land. So that's a good thing. Other events that have happened somewhat recently, since the last podcast, we've had the American Legion barbecue cook-off. I believe it was a good success. I haven't heard the numbers on it yet, but everybody seemed to be pretty happy. It looked like we raised some money. And it was a great thing. I got called into service to be a taste tester on Friday night. And I gladly threw myself under that bus with my wonderful wife, Jessie. And we got to be taste testers for the steak competition on Friday night and also the cobbler competition on Friday night. And then I was even able to purchase the cobbler that I enjoyed the most, and it was delicious. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to ration this out and make it last a week. That was on Friday night, and it was gone by Sunday morning. So there was no rationing going on there. So that was a great event. The American Legion's awesome. They just do great things. My son Raylan, we found out just the other night, got first place in science UIL at the UIL competition he went to a couple of weeks ago. I guess it took some time to kind of noodle out all of the numbers and rankings and everything, and he came in first place. And so pretty proud of him, because he was talking about, oh, I'm not really that smart. I don't think I'm going to do it this year. And then he went and beat the crap out of a bunch of other kids to get first place. So that's awesome. Some other great events that have happened recently. My wife is chair, president, CEO, whatever you want to call it, for the Red River Regional Science and Engineering Fair. That was held at Midwestern State University. It was just a great event, had a bunch of competitors. We are sending a group of kids off to Columbus, Ohio this year for the International Science and Engineering Fair. And then we've got a fair amount of other kids that will be going to the State Science and Engineering Fair at Texas A&M University. So it was really good. But I got to say, one person, I mean, outside of my wife, she had a whole team and they were all great. But one person really impressed me. She actually competed in it back in the day. And she came and she helped set it up and brought snacks and did a bunch of stuff. And that is Mrs. Crystal Battolino. And I know you guys have heard me talk about Michael Battolino a time or two, one of our city councilors and a good friend. But his wife is an amazing person as well. And she jumped in and helped Jesse set up for the science fair, and I believe has become part of the board. I'm not sure. But anyway, what's impressive about this is not that she just jumped in and helped. Number one, it's that, she puts up with Michael and all of his stuff, but they also went and they competed in the Big Brothers, Big Sisters Dancing for the Stars event on Saturday night and won. They actually got first place, which is amazing because I've seen Michael dance a little bit, and she didn't have much to work with. And for them to come in and win first place is pretty amazing. And the fact that she was up early helping with the science fair is awesome. So, Michael, if you're listening to this, dude, you married up. And you better make sure you keep her happy, because it would be hard to find another one like her. Really, I guess the last little bit we've got going on, we've got my oldest daughter's Eagle Scout ceremony coming up this weekend if we all don't freeze to death tomorrow. And so that'll be nice. She's kind of ready for the accolades and stuff to be over, I guess. So Lorelei's Eagle ceremony will be on Saturday, this upcoming Saturday. So pretty excited. So let's go ahead and jump into this week's podcast, because I think it's interesting. So most folks know the story about Cabeza de Vaca coming into Texas through Mexico, cruising around, and I forget exactly how he put it, but basically just like this barren wasteland of land, and why would anybody want to live here? And they kind of got just sort of lost all over the southwestern part of the United States, including a lot of Texas. And pretty much his report back was very unflattering. And so anyway, a lot of people know about that. But I ran across another guy named Francois who also didn't have a great time. But he was able to keep a diary and tell a story about his time basically exploring Texas. And it goes way back to the late 1600s through mid 1700s. And it's just it's very interesting because we always associate, Texas with Spanish and Mexican explorers for the most part, other than, American explorers. But this guy was from France. And so we're going to talk about him a little bit. But then also I ran across an interesting thing literally today. And so we're going to explore why there is a Texas named London whiskey. And it's actually a really, really interesting story. So before we jumped into this, I would like to thank our sponsors as always. That's me and Victory Home Loans. I know there are tons of people moving to and in Texas and Oklahoma. And I know a lot of y'all do too. So let me help them out. Send them my way. Send them to themichaelmitchell.com, THE-michaelmitchell.com. And I like to make that process faster, cheaper, and easier as far as buying a home. But it's not just buying a home. We also do refinances, ag. We will do reverse mortgages, which I've talked about before. There's just a ton of different stuff we can do. And so if you're thinking about buying a home, give me a shout because we beat the heck out of just about every other big box lender. And so, matter of fact, pretty much when I've been up against most banks in town, I've been able to beat them. And that's just because we have so many people we can shop. So there you go. Me and Victory Home Loans, THE-michaelmitchell.com. So where did this week's idea come from? Well, TikTok, of course, it came across. That's where the whiskey thing came about. And I thought, well, that's interesting. And then somebody else had mentioned to me this Francois feller. But what a fascinating story. And so I don't remember if I ran across it or somebody told me about that, but it doesn't matter. It floated across my purview. I looked at it and I thought, well, crap. That looks like a podcast if I ever saw one. So here we are. We're going to talk about Mr. Francois Simard de Belle Isle, who was born in France, of course, in 1695. In autumn, or fall, 1719, like Alvar Nunez Cabeza de Vaca almost 2 centuries earlier, he is marooned near Galveston Bay on the Gulf of America. His ensuing struggle for survival in some ways parallels that of the noted Spaniard Cabeza de Vaca. So, on August 14th, 1719, Belle Isle sails as an officer on the French West Indies Company ship Marechal d'Estrées, bound for Louisiana. When it enters what was formerly known as the Gulf of Mexico, which is now the Gulf of America, the ship became lost, sailed past the Mississippi River, and ran aground near Galveston Bay. Belle Isle and 4 companions asked to be put ashore to ascertain their position and seek help. The ship, having floated free, sailed away without them because apparently they were sailing with a bunch of buttholes. So, yeah, think about that. Gets marooned somewhere. Yeah, let's see. Hang on. Let me go back to it. So, they enter the Gulf of Mexico. They sail past the Mississippi River. They get lost. They run aground near Galveston Bay. And these 4 guys go, you know what? Put us on shore. We'll go seek some help. And we'll find out where we are. And while they're on shore, the ship floats free. And they just go, we didn't like those 4 guys anyway. So they just sail away. So, seeking some familiar landmark, the castaways walked east. That would make sense. If they deduced that they were west of the Mississippi River, if they walked east, they should run in to the Mississippi River and ergo Louisiana and be saved and happy. So they walked east, perhaps as far as the Sabine River, and ascended a river believed to have been the San Jacinto. Having crossed the bay, Belle Isle alone reconnoitered westward, possibly as far as the Brazos River. Doesn't really say why he decides to go westward, but he does, and it also doesn't say why he went alone. I don't know. That winter, the Frenchmen were unable to kill enough game to sustain themselves, and one by one, Belle Isle's companions died of starvation or exposure. Out of ammunition, Belle Isle ate oysters, boiled grass, and huge yellow worms pried from driftwood. Does not say whether he ate his companions. I don't know. When he at last encountered Indians on an island in the bay, they stripped him of his clothing and robbed him of all of his possessions, but they did feed him, and he remained with the wandering Atakapan band throughout the summer of 1720, while it hunted for deer and buffalo and dug wild potatoes, traversing the most beautiful country in the world, as Francois wrote. So, let's get this into your head. Sails from the West Indies, bound for Louisiana, obviously going to do a little trading. They sail too far, they run aground, they throw him and 3 companions onto the shore to go figure out where the heck they are. The boat floats free, they sail away, and now him and his 3 compadres just go cruising around Texas, lost, and all of his buddies die. And then he runs into a band of Indians who strip him of everything, but they start feeding him, so he's probably pretty happy. Naked, but happy. But, I mean, he's a dude, so who cares? Like, he's probably pretty happy that he's naked anyway. Why not? And so he notes that it's the most beautiful country in the world. So he was treated as a slave, which, obviously is never a good thing. Belle Isle was forced during the following winter constantly to carry burdens. He was kept naked and was often subjected to beatings without recourse. When a group of Bidai, Bidai Indians came to the Atacapa camp, he managed to write a letter and gave it to the visitors with instructions to deliver it to the first white man they saw. So the letter passes from tribe to tribe to tribe to tribe, obviously heading east. At last, it reaches the Hissanes, who took it to Louis Juquereau de Saint-Denis at Fort Saint Jean-Baptiste, now in Natchitoches, Louisiana. Saint-Denis sent the Hissanes to rescue the French castaway. So Belle Isle is rescued. He remains among the Hissanes more than 2 months and was taken into the lodge of a young widow, Angelique, or Angelina to the Spaniards, whose name appears several times in French and Spanish records. Guided by her 2 children, he reaches the French post at Natchitoches on February 10th, 1721, and arrives in Biloxi in early April. So he then enters the service of Jean-Baptiste Lemoyne, Sieur de Bienville, and the following summer returns to the Texas coast. Now, this seems like a terrible idea. He obviously went there, had a terrible time, and they talk him into sailing back, right? So he sails back on August 21st, 1721, aboard the ship Subtile, with Jean-Baptiste Bernard de la Harpe. Apparently they liked Jean-Baptiste a lot. And this guy has orders to occupy the Bay St. Bernard, which is now Matagorda, site of La Salle's landing in 1685. The captain of the ship was Jean Beringer, who the previous year had sought to reconnoiter the same bay, but had entered Aransas Pass instead. This time he aired again and landed in Galveston Bay. As La Harpe explored the bay, Belle Isle served as interpreter among the natives, who were quite surprised at seeing their slave. Again, I'm sure they're like, what the heck? This guy just keeps coming back. Like, is he dumb or something? I don't know. But anyway, they're quite surprised to see their slave again. Finding the Indians hostile to his intent, La Harpe ordered withdrawal. From 9 of Belle Isle's former captors taken back to Biloxi as prisoners, Beringer compiled an Atacapan vocabulary, and I'm probably saying that wrong, which helps define the bay explored as Galveston Bay rather than Matagorda. So Belle Isle remains in Louisiana colony until about 1762. He served at various outposts and on expeditions to the interior. He acquires a plantation near New Orleans, so he does quite well after, his enslavement. And in 1753, he became a member of the Superior Council of Louisiana and served as town commander of New Orleans, basically mayor. And after being here for quite some time, he decides to go back to his home country and passes away in Paris, France, March 4th, 1763. So having lived a fairly long life for a guy of, that time frame, that's 68 years old. So, he comes over here at 24, basically bumbles around Texas and Louisiana and Biloxi, Mississippi, I guess. And, just has a grand old time while he's here, other than, of course, the beatings and enslavement. Outside of that, sounds like he had a pretty good time. And then ends up going back to Paris and passes away. So there you go. Francois Simars de Belle Isle. Look him up. He's got an interesting story. So what about this London-based Texas whiskey? Well, that had a very interesting story, and I'm going to have to see. I'm not a big whiskey drinker, but I've got a friend who is, and so I'm going to look up some of this and tell him the story because I think he'll just get a real kick out of it. So, number 4 St. James Street is just a few blocks from the more well-known St. James Place in London. That is where the site of the former legation of the Republic of Texas, which was located in a part of the building that is accessed through a narrow alley known as Pickering Place. In 1986, the Anglo-Texas Society erected a plaque at the entrance to the alley that reads, Texas Legation to the Court of St. James, 1842 to 1845. What the hell is this? What is legation? And I'm sure you guys are going, Mike, what is this? And I agree with you. I had to read it, but I'm going to tell you. Hang on. So the building is owned by Berry Brothers and Rudd, a prominent and historic London wine merchant that has provided wine, ports, and whiskeys to the royal family from this location since the reign of George III, which was 1760 to 1820. The business served as landlord to an assortment of organizations that rented out the Georgian rooms. Notably, former tenants included a brothel, a gambling den, Napoleon when he was in exile, and the embassy of the Republic of Texas from 1842 to 1845 at the directive of President Sam Houston. London was a big trading partner, and, England wanted to see Texas succeed. Or not secede, succeed. And so, they basically gave him a place to go. So what is a legation? Well, a legation, Legation, is a diplomatic minister that is of lower rank than an ambassador or an embassy. So basically, it's kind of like, we're not going to give you a whole embassy, but we'll rent you a room, right? So we'll give you not a place at the table, but we'll put you in a corner. That's kind of what that is. So after Texas declares its independence in 1836, its borders were exposed and vulnerable to both the United States and Mexico. President Houston was eager to gain international support and recognition, and he established legations in Washington, D.C., Paris, and London. So he kind of made ties with not only the U.S., but also France and England. Houston sent Secretary of State Dr. Ashbel Smith to serve as the Texas legation representative to England. The Court of St. James is the official royal court for the sovereign of the United Kingdom, and at this time, it was also the official residence of the monarchy. So the court formally receives all ambassadors accredited to the United Kingdom, even today. For Smith, the appointment was very short-lived. Despite the Crown's support of Texas's independence, Texas decides to join the United States in December 1845. So Dr. Smith is only there for a few years. So in their haste to return to Texas, the delegation left an outstanding bill of 160 pounds with their landlord. And in 1986, Texas' sesquicentennial year, a delegation of 26 Texans, dressed in Texas frontier garb and buckskin jackets, visited Berry Brothers and Rudd to finally settle the bill. Now keep in mind, this was, 140 years later? Something like that, 150 years? Anyway, so they go back and they decide it's time to settle the bill. So they paid the overdue 160 pounds in Republic of Texas banknotes. Berry Brothers and Rudd honors the relationship by launching a new brand of whiskey named Tex Leg Bourbon Whiskey. I don't know how much it costs, but I am going to look it up when I'm done with the podcast. So Texas settles up its bill because we don't leave bills hanging out. And I don't know, maybe that's a little jab at we are one of the few states that does run on a balanced budget. We don't run in a deficit budget. And Texas is very proud of that. And we have our legislature in right now. And they're doing work. And one of the things they're talking about is the budget. But I love that in 1986, they were able to put together enough Republic of Texas banknotes to pay that 160 pounds that we owed them. And in return, they name a bourbon whiskey after us. So, documents pertaining to the legation, mostly diplomatic dispatches, are in the Texas State Library. So there you go. Tex Leg Bourbon Whiskey. So here we go. A French guy named Francois has a not pleasant time in Texas, much like Cabeza de Vaca, although Cabeza de Vaca was not a slave. And then Texas joins the United States, leaves England hanging for, I guess, 150 years-ish, but goes back and settles its debt. And as a thank you to us, they create a bourbon whiskey after Texas. How cool is that? So what do y'all think? What other weird, off-the-wall, interesting Texas history would you like to hear about? Send me an email, text, Facebook message, follow my page, follow my group. Let me know, because I don't mind doing a little digging and putting this stuff out there. I want to thank our sponsors again, of course. That's me and Victory Home Loans. Keep in mind, if you know someone moving to or in Texas or Oklahoma, send them my way. TheMichaelMitchell.com, THE MichaelMitchell.com. And remember, I sell dreams, not mortgages. Thank you all for tuning in to Once Upon a Time in Texas. As always, remember, the stars at night are big and bright, deep in the heart of Texas. Y'all have a great week.